The vast emptiness of space surrounded the Alderian scout ship as it drifted silently through the outer reaches of an unremarkable solar system. Commander Tay stood on the observation deck, his tall frame bent slightly as he studied the readings from the ship's sensors. After 3 decades of military service, he had thought nothing could surprise him anymore. He was wrong. "Sir, you need to see this," called out Navigator Ben, his voice unusually animated. "The third planet shows signs of advanced civilization, but they're not in our database." Tay moved quickly to the main console. The blue-green world rotating on the screen appeared peaceful, beautiful even, yet the readings indicated something extraordinary, a species advancing at an unprecedented rate. Radio signals, satellites, primitive space stations, all signs of a civilization on the cusp of interstellar travel. How did we miss them? Tay wondered aloud. This system lies between contested territories. Neither we nor the Vexalti would have reason to explore here, Ben explained. They've developed in isolation. Tay watched the planet's slow rotation for several moments before making his decision. Send the coordinates to High Command. This could change everything. The response came within hours. The Alderian leadership, desperate for any advantage in their centuries-long war with the Vexalti, ordered immediate first contact. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Han stood before the United Earth Council in a specially constructed meeting chamber in Geneva. The diplomat's appearance, with iridescent skin and 4 articulated arms, had caused initial shock among the humans, but they had adapted quickly. Our civilizations have been at war for over 300 years, Han explained, her translator converting her musical language into words the humans could understand. Millions have died, worlds have been destroyed, and neither side gains advantage. President Kim, a woman with calm eyes and a reputation for level thinking, leaned forward. And what do you want from Earth? We have only recently mastered travel within our own solar system. Our technology is primitive compared to yours. Han's upper arms made a gesture of acknowledgement. Technology is not everything. New perspectives can be invaluable. We do not ask for your weapons or your resources. We ask for your minds. The room fell silent as the implications settled over the gathered leaders. You want military advisors, said General Park, his expression thoughtful. You want us to help you win your war. We want to end the war, Han corrected. Whether through victory or negotiation matters less than stopping the bloodshed. After the meeting, Earth's leaders debated through the night. Some feared involvement in an alien conflict would bring the war to their doorstep. Others saw opportunity for humanity to gain advanced technology and protection in a dangerous galaxy. Captain June watched the sunrise from the window of his hotel room, wondering what strange worlds he might soon see. As one of Earth's top military strategists, he had been selected to join the first human delegation to Alderian space. Are we making a mistake? Asked Major Mina, his colleague and friend. June considered the question carefully. Maybe. But staying isolated in a galaxy at war seems equally dangerous. 1 month later, President Kim addressed the world from the United Nations headquarters. Behind her stood Ambassador Han and several other Alderian representatives. After careful consideration, Earth has decided to provide limited assistance to the Alderian Confederation, she announced. We will send advisors and observers, but Earth remains neutral in this conflict. No weapons will be provided, and no human forces will engage in combat. The first human delegation departed Earth aboard an Alderian vessel 3 days later. The ship, a marvel of engineering that could cross light years in days, contained 12 Earth military strategists and diplomatic representatives. As the blue sphere of their home world shrank behind them, Admiral Sung addressed her team. We go not as warriors but as thinkers. Our mission is to observe, understand, and advise. If we can help end a war that has claimed millions of lives, we will have accomplished something extraordinary. What none of the humans yet understood was how differently their minds worked from either of the warring species. Both Alderians and Vexalti had evolved from herd creatures, developing technologies through cooperation but maintaining rigid patterns of thought. Humans, with their contradictory mixture of cooperation and competition, had developed a flexibility of thinking that would soon shock the galaxy. As their ship accelerated beyond the solar system, leaving Earth behind for the first time in human history, none of them suspected that humanity's entry into galactic politics would end a centuries-old conflict in mere hours. Captain June stood frozen as he watched the massive Alderian battleship fire its main cannons. The energy beams stretched across space like silent lightning, striking a Vexalti cruiser. The enemy vessel didn't explode as he expected. Instead, it split perfectly in half, each piece continuing on its trajectory before secondary explosions tore them apart. "Impressive," he said quietly. Commander Rai, his Alderian guide, made a clicking sound with his mouthparts. "Standard particle separation weapons. We've used them for over 70 years. The human delegation had arrived at the Alderian command station 2 days earlier. Now they watched a battle from the safety of the observation deck, positioned several light minutes from the actual fighting. The advanced viewing technology made it seem as if they stood among the warships. "They'll counter with gravitational disruptors," predicted Rai. Sure enough, the Vexalti fleet responded exactly as described. Their counterattack disabled 3 Alderian ships, causing them to drift helplessly. Major Mina made notes on her tablet. "The battle follows precise patterns," she whispered to Admiral Sung. "It's like they're following a script." Admiral Sung nodded slowly. She had commanded Earth naval forces for 15 years and had never seen warfare conducted this way. Both sides used incredibly advanced technology but deployed it in completely predictable ways. "Commander Rai," she asked, "how long has this particular battle been going on?" "This sector has been contested for 23 years, he replied matter-of-factly. "We gain control for several months, then lose it, then regain it. The cycle continues." The humans exchanged troubled glances. 23 years fighting over the same territory, with no resolution in sight. Later that day, the human delegation met in their private quarters aboard the station. The room had been modified to accommodate Earth physiology, with appropriate gravity and air composition. "They're fighting a war of attrition," Major Mina said, bringing up holographic displays of the battle data. "Neither side attempts anything unexpected." Captain June nodded. "It's as if they can only think of warfare in terms of direct force against force." Admiral Sung paced the room. "Both species evolved from herd animals. Their entire civilization is built on consensus and uniformity. They developed amazing technology through cooperation, but they lack deviousness," offered Lieutenant Du, a young tactical officer. "Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. We learned to be unpredictable." The next morning, Admiral Sung requested a meeting with Fleet Commander Bach, the highest-ranking Alderian military officer on the station. The alien commander towered over the humans, his forearms decorated with symbols of rank. "You've observed our tactics," Bach stated. "What insights can Earth provide?" Admiral Sung hesitated. "Have you considered less direct approaches? Feints, diversions, psychological warfare?" Bach's head tilted slightly. "Explain these concepts." For 2 hours, the humans outlined basic tactical maneuvers that any Earth military officer would consider elementary. Flanking movements. False retreats. Misinformation campaigns. The Alderian commander listened with increasing confusion. "These suggestions," Bach finally said, "they seem dishonorable. War has protocols. Both sides understand the rules of engagement." Captain June couldn't hide his disbelief. "With respect, Commander, war isn't about rules. It's about achieving objectives with minimal losses." "Perhaps for humans," replied Bach. "Our way has balance. We fight, they fight. Eventually, one side will prevail." After 3 more days observing battles, the human delegation prepared their preliminary report. They gathered in the station's strategic command center, surrounded by Alderian officers. Admiral Sung presented their findings respectfully but directly. "Your technology is far beyond ours," she acknowledged. "But your approach to warfare is limited. You fight the same battles repeatedly with the same results." Commander Rai's skin changed color slightly, a sign of disagreement. We have fought the Vexalti for 3 centuries. What could your species possibly teach us about warfare? Before Admiral Sung could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A holographic display showed dozens of Vexalti warships materializing from hyperspace much closer than expected. Impossible, shouted Bach. They've broken the engagement distance protocols. The station rocked as the first wave of weapons struck its shields. The Eldarians rushed to battle stations, issuing orders in their musical language. Evacuation procedures initiated, announced an automated voice. All non-combat personnel to escape pods. Captain June grabbed Admiral Sung's arm as another explosion shook the station. They're actually surprised the enemy didn't follow the rules, he said in disbelief. As they rushed toward the evacuation area, Admiral Sung watched the Eldarian officers continuing to follow their standard protocols despite the unexpected attack. They responded with the same tactics they'd always used, unable to adapt to the changing situation. We need to get back to Earth, she told her team as they crowded into an escape pod. I think humanity has more to offer this war than anyone realized. The pod launched into space as the battle raged around them. Through the viewport, they watched the methodical destruction unfold, each side following patterns established centuries ago. Even this surprise attack quickly settled into familiar rhythms of attack and counterattack. They need us, whispered Major Mina. They just don't know it yet. The Earth delegation's return ship landed at the newly constructed Interstellar Relations Complex in New Zealand. Despite the momentous occasion of humans returning from their first interstellar mission, the mood was somber. They carried with them data crystals containing thousands of hours of battle footage, strategic analyses, and cultural information about both warring alien species. General Day met them on the landing pad, his weathered face showing concern. Your emergency transmission was brief. The situation is that bad? Admiral Sung nodded, dark circles under her eyes. Worse than we imagined. They're trapped in a war without end because neither side can conceive of fighting differently. Within hours, Earth's top military strategists, psychologists, and anthropologists gathered in a secure underground facility. The room hummed with tension as the delegation presented their findings. The Eldarians and Vexalti both evolved from herd species, explained Major Mina, gesturing to biological diagrams on the large screen. Their ancestors survived by moving together, thinking alike, and following established patterns. Captain June stepped forward. Their technology is incredible. Weapons that can tear apart atoms, ships that fold spacetime, energy shields that can withstand supernovas. But they use all this advanced technology in the most straightforward ways possible. He played footage of several battles. The gathered experts watched in stunned silence as the alien fleets maneuvered in precise, predictable formations. Each side responded to attacks with textbook counters that hadn't changed in centuries. It's like watching ancient armies line up on opposite hills, commented Colonel Bay, a military historian. No deception, no surprise, just direct confrontation. Dr. Lee, a xenopsychologist, studied the information about Eldarian and Vexalti brain structures. Fascinating. Their neural pathways are optimized for consensus. Creative thinking actually causes them physical discomfort. Meanwhile, humans evolved as both predator and prey, Admiral Sung said. We developed the ability to think unpredictably because our survival depended on it. For the next week, Earth's best minds worked around the clock analyzing the alien conflict. They discovered that despite centuries of war, neither side had ever attempted basic strategies that human militaries had used for thousands of years. They don't use feints or diversions, General Day noted during one session. They don't target supply lines or communication systems. They just hit each other until someone gives up. Lieutenant Du, who had specialized in psychological warfare, shook his head in amazement. They don't even have concepts for misinformation or deception. When I suggested fake retreats to Commander Rai, he thought I was describing a mechanical failure. On the 7th day, President Kim joined their session. She listened quietly as the team presented their conclusions. We believe we can end this war quickly, Admiral Sung stated. Not with superior technology, but with tactics these species simply cannot comprehend. General Day unveiled the plan they had named Operation Circuit Breaker. It involved targeting communication networks rather than military assets, creating confusion in enemy ranks, and using unpredictable maneuvers to break the rhythm of battle that had persisted for centuries. "Will it work?" asked President Kim. "Their entire military doctrine is based on predictability," Captain June replied. When faced with actions they can't categorize or anticipate, both sides will struggle to respond effectively. The room fell silent as the president considered the implications. Earth was about to change the course of a galactic war that had claimed billions of lives. "There's something else," Admiral Sung added quietly. "Their psychological profiles suggest that once we break their battle patterns, peace might be possible. Both species are fundamentally cooperative. They're fighting because neither can conceive of an alternative to their current approach." 2 days later, Ambassador Han arrived to hear Earth's proposal. The Elderian diplomat listened with increasing confusion as General Day outlined Operation Circuit Breaker. "These tactics." Han struggled to find words. "They seem chaotic. Unprincipled." "They seem human," corrected President Kim. "This is how we've fought wars throughout our history." "And you believe this will succeed where our methods have failed for centuries?" Han's skin rippled with doubt. Admiral Sung stepped forward. "We don't just believe it. We're certain of it. Your fleets have been fighting the same battles for 300 years. The Vexalti expect certain responses from you, just as you expect certain behaviors from them. We're going to break that cycle." Han considered this for a long moment. "Our high command will resist. These suggestions contradict everything we understand about warfare." "Which is exactly why they'll work," said Captain June. "The Vexalti won't be able to comprehend what's happening until it's too late." After 3 more days of discussions, the Elderian leadership reluctantly agreed to implement the human plan. A small team of Earth advisors would deploy across the Elderian fleet, directing a coordinated strategy unlike anything seen before in the long history of the Galactic War. As they prepared to depart Earth once again, Lieutenant Du approached Admiral Sung. "It's strange, isn't it? We're the least advanced species involved, yet we might end a war that has defeated their best minds for centuries." Admiral Sung nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes the greatest innovation isn't technological. It's perspective." Lieutenant Du stood on the bridge of the Elderian flagship, surrounded by towering aliens whose skin shifted colors with their emotions. The current predominant shade was a deep blue anxiety. He understood their feelings. What they were about to attempt went against everything they had learned about warfare. "All human advisors are in position," he reported to Admiral Sung via secure communication. "Elderian fleet commanders are cooperating, though reluctantly." "Understood," came Admiral Sung's voice. "Operation Circuit Breaker begins in 30 minutes. Remember, our goal isn't destruction but disruption." Across 12 battle sectors, 24 human advisors had been placed aboard key Elderian vessels. Each advisor had spent the last week coaching alien crews on tactics that seemed obvious to humans but revolutionary to the Elderians. Fleet Commander Bach approached Lieutenant Du, his massive frame towering over the human. "My crew is uncomfortable with these methods. They feel dishonest." "War isn't about comfort," Du replied gently. "It's about saving lives by ending the conflict quickly." The main display showed hundreds of Vexalti warships advancing toward their position. For centuries, the Elderians would have formed a defensive line and exchanged fire until one side withdrew to regroup. Today would be different. "Begin Phase 1, ordered Admiral Sung from the command vessel. Lieutenant Du took a deep breath. "Initiate communication disruption protocols." Instead of powering up weapons, the Elderian ships launched thousands of small, unmanned drones. These devices weren't weapons but signal jammers, designed to flood Vexalti communication channels with contradictory orders and false information. "Now the randomized movement patterns," Du instructed. The Elderian commander hesitated momentarily before inputting the commands. The fleet, which normally moved in precise formations, suddenly broke apart. Ships accelerated and decelerated at unpredictable intervals. Some appeared to flee, others moved at oblique angles to the enemy. Across the battle zone, similar chaos unfolded. The Vexalti fleet, expecting the standard Alderian response, faltered in confusion. On another vessel, Major Mina watched with satisfaction as her ship executed a maneuver that appeared to be a retreat but was actually positioning them behind a Vexalti support group. Target their communication arrays only, she instructed. Disable, don't destroy. The Alderian weapons officer complied, though his skin flickered with orange distress signals. Precision beams lanced out, severing the enemy ship's ability to coordinate without causing casualties. Elsewhere, Captain June supervised the deployment of holographic decoys, another concept alien to both civilizations. The false ships appeared identical to real Alderian vessels but existed only as light in sensor readings. "They're dividing their forces to address the decoys," reported an Alderian sensor operator, amazement in her voice. The Vexalti, who had fought the same enemy using the same tactics for centuries, could not comprehend the sudden change in behavior. Their rigid command structure, designed for direct confrontation, began to fracture under the pressure of uncertainty. Admiral Sung monitored the entire operation from a central command ship. Phase 2, she ordered after the first hour. Now the human advisors implemented psychological warfare. Alderian ships broadcast contradictory surrender demands to different segments of the Vexalti fleet. Some claimed victory, others offered false truces. The careful coordination of these messages, timed to coincide with the unpredictable movement patterns, created maximum confusion. Commander Gill, positioned in the communications center of a major Alderian base, watched as the Vexalti communication network became increasingly chaotic. "They're arguing with each other," he told his Alderian counterpart. "Their commanders can't agree on how to respond because they can't categorize what's happening." By the fourth hour, the first Vexalti ships began to withdraw. Not in the usual orderly retreat that signaled a temporary setback, but in genuine confusion. Some vessels fired on their allies, believing them to be disguised enemy ships. Others went completely silent, their commanders paralyzed by indecision. Lieutenant Du watched the main tactical display with satisfaction. "Phase 3, he announced. This was perhaps the most alien concept to the Alderians: selective targeting. Rather than engaging the enemy's strongest ships, the Alderian fleet focused on disrupting their logistics and support vessels. Fuel carriers, repair ships, and communication relays found themselves under precise attack while main battleships were often ignored completely. "This feels wrong," murmured Commander Bach as they bypassed a massive Vexalti dreadnought to disable a small coordination vessel. "It feels effective," corrected Lieutenant Du, pointing to the display showing the dreadnought now drifting uselessly without orders or support. By the sixth hour, large sections of the Vexalti fleet had fallen into disarray. Ships moved without coordination, fired at random targets, or simply stopped responding altogether. The command structure that had functioned efficiently for centuries could not adapt to warfare conducted outside its understood parameters. Major Mina looked out through the viewscreen at the scattered enemy vessels. "Have we destroyed their fleet?" asked her Alderian captain. "Better," she replied. "We've destroyed their ability to function as a fleet." As the 8th hour approached, Admiral Sung called all human advisors. "Prepare for Phase 4, she instructed. "It's time to offer them a way out." The Alderians, witnessing the unprecedented success of the human tactics, now watched in astonishment as their fleet prepared not to deliver a killing blow, but to extend terms for the first meaningful peace talks in 3 centuries. The Grand Council chamber aboard the neutral station Convergence hummed with tension. Representatives from Earth sat alongside Alderian diplomats, facing their Vexalti counterparts across a vast circular table. Just 16 hours earlier, these two species had been locked in a war that had lasted 3 centuries. Now, they gathered uncertainly for peace talks. Admiral Sung watched the Vexalti delegation with careful eyes. Their tall, insect-like forms moved with rigid precision, but she noted subtle signs of disorientation in their gestures. Their entire worldview had been shattered in less than a day. Supreme Commander Lore of the Vexalti forces spoke first, his translator converting his clicking speech to words the humans could understand. For 16 generations, we have fought according to the established protocols of interstellar conflict, he stated, compound eyes fixed on the Eldarian delegation. Yesterday, these protocols were violated in ways we cannot comprehend. Fleet Commander Bach of the Eldarians shifted uncomfortably. The tactics were not of our design. They were implemented under human guidance. All eyes turned to the Earth representatives. President Kim nodded calmly. Humans have a different perspective on conflict, she explained. We evolved as both social cooperators and individual competitors. Our history is filled with wars fought using deception, misdirection, and psychological manipulation. The Vexalti representatives communicated among themselves through rapid antennae movements before Supreme Commander Lore responded. Your species achieved in hours what neither of our civilizations could accomplish in centuries. This is disturbing. Captain June leaned forward. It shouldn't be. It simply demonstrates that different evolutionary paths lead to different ways of thinking. You excel at consensus and technological development. We excel at adaptation and unpredictable thinking. As the discussion continued, both alien species struggled to process how completely the humans had changed the dynamics of their war. The Vexalti had lost no significant number of ships or personnel, only their ability to function as a cohesive fighting force when faced with incomprehensible tactics. Your methods seem dishonorable, said a Vexalti diplomat, skin pulsing with distress patterns. Is it more honorable to continue a war that has claimed billions of lives? Major Mina asked quietly. To fight the same battles repeatedly with the same results? Our methods ended the bloodshed. By midday, the negotiations had progressed to concrete terms. Both the Eldarians and Vexalti recognized that traditional warfare was no longer viable. If humans could disrupt their carefully structured conflict so thoroughly once, they could do it again. We propose a 50-year peace treaty, offered President Kim. During this time, joint scientific missions will explore disputed territories, with resources shared equally between your civilizations. The alien delegates were initially resistant, but as the talks progressed, a remarkable thing happened. Their natural inclination toward cooperation, long channeled into rigid military hierarchies, began to reassert itself in a new context. As evening approached, Lieutenant Du observed an Eldarian and Vexalti engineer discussing shared technologies with genuine enthusiasm. Their species had been so focused on fighting each other that they had forgotten their common evolutionary heritage as cooperative beings. They're more alike than different, he murmured to Admiral Sung. They just needed someone to break the pattern. After 16 hours of negotiation, matching the 16 hours it had taken to end 3 centuries of war, the peace treaty was signed. Both civilizations agreed to demilitarized zones, resource-sharing agreements, and ongoing human mediation. As the delegations prepared to depart, Supreme Commander Lore approached President Kim privately. Your species concerns us, he admitted, his translator conveying the unease in his tone. You think in ways we cannot predict. President Kim smiled slightly. That's precisely why we're valuable allies. Our differences strengthen all of us. 1 month later, the human delegation gathered in the Oval Office to brief the president on the treaty implementation. Admiral Sung reported that the first joint Eldarian Vexalti research mission had already launched. They're adapting remarkably well to peace, she concluded. Their natural cooperative instincts are reasserting themselves. And Earth's position in galactic politics, asked President Kim. General Day smiled. We've been invited to join the Galactic Council as full members, despite our limited technology. Both the Eldarians and Vexalti supported our admission unanimously. They fear us, Captain June noted. But they also respect us. We showed them alternatives they couldn't imagine themselves. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Sung remained behind with the president. They stood by the window, looking up at the evening sky where distant stars held civilizations far more advanced than Earth's. We'll have to be careful, President Kim said thoughtfully. Our particular way of thinking is powerful. It could be used to manipulate as easily as to help. Admiral Sung nodded. The Vexalti ambassador asked me yesterday if all humans are strategic geniuses. I told him no, we're just different. Our evolutionary path created minds that can imagine both cooperation and competition, both truth and deception. That's our strength and our responsibility. Outside the window, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Somewhere among them, two ancient civilizations were learning to live in peace, guided by the perspective of a species they had initially considered primitive. In ending a war that had seemed eternal, humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage not with superior technology or overwhelming force, but with that uniquely human quality, the ability to think differently.